This video talks about the full Pokemon Sun and Moon Dex leaks, so spoilers are within, but there are some really interesting things to talk about when it comes to data mine, because quite a few people believe that it's incomplete, that there's something missing, that the Pokemon Company is holding out on us, right? And there are a couple of things to back it up. At the same time, this is very likely to just be everything that we're going to get when it comes to Pokemon Sun and Moon. So let's go all the way back to the original confirmed Chinese rumor at this point, because at first popped up, we didn't know what to think of it. There's a lot of other fakes and stuff, like pretty much everything that came out of 4chan turned out to be fake, but this one was indeed different, because first off, it called trial captains. It said that there aren't going to be any more gyms and stuff anymore. We haven't found out about Elite Four appearing, which are the leaders of each island, but it does make sense that we already know about the Kahunas, and if they actually go and step up and become the Elite Four, that is a very likely thing. Now also, the Chinese rumor was about the original starter final evolutions as well. For a very long time, people thought that these were absolutely fake, and then as more and more information about the Chinese rumor turned out to be true, this seemed more and more likely to be true, and then with the data mine, we see the sprites. We know that the final evolutions are indeed confirmed: Archer, Wrestler, and Siren. Next up, Diamond Stones will be collectible throughout the region and act similar to Mega Stones. Well, Z Crystals and Z Moves, that was also confirmed. Then we also have Rockruff, and then a Mushroom, a Sea Cucumber, and a Rugby Monkey were also predicted. So that's the big one. Like, I could have, alright, anyone could have been like, there's gonna be a Mushroom in Pokemon, maybe a Sea Cucumber in Hawaii, but Rugby Monkey is what got me. So the Chinese rumors are now, like, absolutely hyper confirmed, except we don't see a Dolphin and a Snowman. We made it so far with the Chinese rumors at this point, and then when we look at the full list of all the Pokemon, well, this isn't all the Pokemon, there's a couple like the legendaries and stuff off screen, but this is like the bulk of the Alola region Pokemon that we were getting. You look at it and you think, yeah, I don't see a Dolphin, I don't see a Snowman or anything. Not to mention an extreme lack of, like, steel and ice type Pokemon, that it seems pretty thin on diversity even for the Alola region. We know there's a little icy kind of area, but if we're only going to find Alolan Sandshrew and Sandslash there and Alolan Ninetales for new Pokemon, that doesn't make it feel like a wholesome Pokemon experience. And even though there's a lot of water type Pokemon, there is still a lack of quite a few others that just feels really imbalanced if this is the entire Pokedex leak. And also, some other people are like complaining about other Pokemon not getting enough evolutions and stuff, but the closest thing that could maybe resemble a Dolphin and a Snowman could be the Yeti Crab-ish looking Pokemon, and then also one of the unnamed Tapu Pokemon. Now, it depends on, like, translations and also what the person saw. Like, I believe that potentially, even though while it technically looks a bit more like a Marlin, that this could resemble some kind of Dolphin for the Tapu Pokemon. And since it is a leak from China, maybe there was a rough translation or just something that happened with the context, and that Snowman was actually meant to be a Yeti of some sort or something like that, you know. The folklore, the origin of the name for Yeti is Snowman or Mountain Man. So maybe that was what he meant by Snowman, not like you build up, you know, balls of snow and then pile them on top of each other with a carrot nose. Not that kind of snowman, but like a snow man. And since this is like a Yeti looking thing based off of a crab, it might have been some kind of weird translation like that. Or there is the possibility that these aren't the Dolphin or Snowman that the Chinese leaker was talking about, which means there could be more Pokemon available. Also, another really interesting thing is that we don't see every sprite in the game. That the only sprites inside the game are the ones for the Alola Dex. That we already know that it has been confirmed that there are going to be Pokemon that will be Pokebank transfer only, and because of that, we don't see the starter Kanto Pokemon. We don't see some of these other Pokemon throughout the games, and we also don't see sprites for the Moon phase and Radiant Sun phase of Solgaleo and Lunala, which means there are some sprites, there are some things missing. Or maybe not everything was intentionally put into the demo for one reason or another, maybe to cut down on size, but also at the same time, it doesn't make sense to have all of these unused Pokemon from every generation just because they're in the Alola Dex, and then also leave out every single Pokemon because they are Pokebank transfer only. So there are a couple of really interesting holes right there. Now, getting back to Pokemon people think should have evolutions, there's Komala. Like, everyone from the start has seen Komala, it's like, I can't wait to see his final evolution, because it seems like it would do some kind of Pancham into Pangoro thing, that this is a tiny little guy, has a lot of room for a crazy potential 2 or 3 stage evolutionary line, but what we see in the leaks, he's not there. There's no evolutions. It's just him, which is kind of odd because this Pokemon has a very strong competitive ability, but it doesn't seem like it's going to do much if he's just a single stage Pokemon. There's also a lot of other Pokemon that people feel should have gotten evolutions. Like, what about the second stage of Cutiefly? That thing seems like it should take it to the next level, and a few other Pokemon as well that just feel incomplete. And then there's the Alolan Pokemon. Now this is actually really weird because if the leaks are true and this is everything, it just doesn't make sense the way that they were revealed, because with Alolan Dugtrio being in the demo, that kind of confirms or at least makes Diglett not too much of a surprise. And we've already revealed all of the other Alolan Pokemon have been revealed except for Geodude, Graveler, and Golem. So it kind of doesn't make sense that Game Freak kind of held out with us initially. You know, they only revealed a couple and then slow, small reveals at a time, and then be like, oh, by the way, there's no more left except for one evolutionary line when we get into the full game. So that reveal seems like it's just a little too strange for these to be the only Pokemon with Alolan forms in Pokemon Sun and Moon, right? Now, it was also confirmed by Masuda and Omori in a recent interview that it's just Kanto Pokemon for Alolan forms, so which means, like, this would be it. And I feel like there could be room for other Pokemon getting Alolan forms, like Jinx would make a lot of sense, and quite a few others as well. Like, it feels like there's a lot of other Pokemon that kind of need a buff or at least some love from the first generation, but that isn't so. And then just the sheer amount of revealed Pokemon is kind of scary to think about. At the moment, according to Joe Merrick, 53 Pokemon officially revealed, 3 more with the Ultra Beast, and then 12 Alolan forms revealed. Now, this was before we got the Alolan Dugtrio, and also Alolan Persian was also revealed recently, so that's just Diglett and then the 4 others. And because of that, we can see from history notes 37 of 135, 30 of 107, 52 of 156, and 42 of 72, which means that if we're only getting like the 80 Alolan Pokemon that we have seen so far, so that means from all of the official reveals and everything, there would only be roughly 30 Pokemon that haven't been revealed, and 3 of those are legendary, the pre-evolutions to Solgaleo and Lunala and Marshadow, I believe. But that's, yeah, like, for the love of God, stop so we can be surprised. Like, that removes a lot of surprise if you reveal 2/3 of the entire Pokedex before the game even comes out. Either that is a very unique marketing strategy, or there's something left to be discovered. Like, that's actually really interesting that people thought Gen 6 didn't introduce nearly enough Pokemon, and even with the introduction of the Alolan Pokemon, only having these few Alolan Pokemon with some of the new 6th generation Pokemon just seems like it's still not enough, that we're still behind Gen 4, and that's including the Alolan Pokemon buff, so there might be a couple other things hiding, there might be something waiting around the corner. So that means that the 7th generation would be the second least amount of Pokemon introduced in a new generation. That's kind of crazy, especially because, like, Junichi Masuda and Omori, they said in the interview that they don't think they're running out of ideas for new Pokemon. Well, if you're doing 2 of the lowest generations back to back, it kind of sounds like you're running out of ideas. So yeah, I hope there are more things to be revealed, but at the same time, like, I'm not disappointed with this roster. The roster of new Pokemon looks pretty strong, but it seems like that they could have done a bit more, especially with, like, the Alolan theme, or at least just new Pokemon in general, that all of these feel tied to Hawaii or some kind of tropical region in some way, but that doesn't mean they have to be bound to it. They could have done a couple of just other, just normal Pokemon that would kind of fit no matter where they are introduced into, because this feels very specific to the geography of the Alola region. And also, when we look at it, there's not too many 3-stage evolutionary lines. Like, all the evolutions seem a little split up, that there's only 7, and that's including the 3 that we get with the starter Pokemon, and then just a lot of 2-stage and single-stage evolutions. So it feels like it's really scattered for the new Pokemon and all of the things available like that. And then the last thing to point out is that there are no new fossil Pokemon. That, just looking at that list, nothing really jumps out as a fossil Pokemon. And that would be a bit concerning because every generation except for the 2nd generation has had fossil Pokemon. That means 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Like, that's a good streak to kind of keep alive for fossil Pokemon. And technically, it's been confirmed in interviews, so we could see that in Red and Green there were originally 190 Pokemon, and then that ended up getting split up into the 2nd generation. So maybe because the 1st and 2nd generation were so tied together, that's why there weren't any new false Pokemon introduced in the 2nd generation. We can even see that the index numbers of some Pokemon kind of blend in with the original Pokedex. So the original 151, well, index number-wise, was actually showing Pokemon from the 2nd generation because those 2 generations were tied together. However, the lack of fossil Pokemon does make sense according to Hawaii's geography. that since the islands are fairly new on a geological scale and the volcanoes are pretty active, that there hasn't been a lot of time for specific fossils to develop, so it would mostly be like algae and coral stuff and things that really wouldn't need millions of years to build up into the fossil record. So the paleontology in Hawaii is fairly sparse, which might just mean that that was a design decision by Game Freak and not necessarily that they're hiding some kind of fossil Pokemon. And then last up, you know, there's just people thinking it, that with everything that happened out of the Pokemon Sun and Moon demo data mine, like the moves were scrubbed, the base stats were scrubbed, text and names were scrubbed, the typing, everything was scrubbed except for the pictures. It almost seems intentional. Now, I'm not putting words in Joe Merrick's mouth. I don't believe that he thinks that this was intentional, but it is one of those, like, crazy tin hat kind of things that everything was so expertly scrubbed, yet they left this stuff in. It boggles the mind. If it wasn't crazy, I'd think it were intentional. I ended up doing a poll, and it seems like people are about 50-50, more leaning on the side of, yeah, this might have been intentional by Game Freak, that there's no way that you could do so well scrubbing everything else, that they even covered up the names of the moves by replacing them all with pound, that we don't know anything about the games inside, except we got a couple of pictures, but not full animation. So it's kind of like a teaser of the new Pokemon that are going to be in Pokemon Sun and Moon, and it doesn't even feel like that super spoilery as well, that we're not going to be able to get like the full engagement of these Pokemon, that when the game comes out, then we find out about their movesets, then we find about their name, then we find out about their stats. So it's like learning about these Pokemon for the first time all over again. And if you think about it, it was only 20-something more new Pokemon revealed because of this, and since so many have already been revealed officially by the Pokemon Company, it just doesn't add up. So hypothetically, if there are Pokemon that haven't been revealed that were intentionally left out of the game in case it got data mined, then what if there's 15, 20? You know, that means we still have another pretty solid reveal for Pokemon left, and then everything starts to average out. So that's what this video is all about. I'm trying to show both sides. You know, there are reasons as to why this might have happened. There are also reasons as to why not it might have happened. You know, I think like one big thing is like, oh, with the whole fossil thing, a lot of people are jumping that, but at the same time, it does make sense. And maybe there was the mistranslation of all the other Pokemon, and maybe there are a few more things that the data miners haven't found yet, but they don't necessarily mean that it's going to be about new Pokemon. So I'd like to see what you guys think down below. Is this everything? Are we going to get new Pokemon? Or what is just going on when it comes to Pokemon Sun and Moon? Like, the data mine has been the craziest thing in the history of Pokemon, and now there's still speculation like, nah, that can't be it. And I believe I've heard rumblings of also like the data miners and the people studying that saying it feels like there's gaps. It feels like there's something that's been removed or extra just kind of missing right there, and that's where things start to get a little extra crazy. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.